calling the March 12th, 2023 budget meeting of the Concord School Board into session. Ms. Hastings, will you please take the roll?
Yes, Ms. Walsh?
Here.
Ms. Higgins?
Here.
Mr. Weinberg?
Here.
Mr. Cotton?
Here.
Ms. Robinson?
Here.
Ms. Meeker?
Here.
And Mr. Croto?
Here.
And Mr. Richards is absent. We have 8 in attendance.
And tonight we're focusing on food service, technology, and the very broad category of other.
I'm leaving that one to you. I have nothing. I just put
Oh,
it.
okay.
I thought it'd be fun.
Mr. Dunn, you
It's like
started
Jeopardy.
with the spring.
What is,
Yeah. What is other? All right. Good night. Hello. One of those days. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
This is like the,
Time change. I should have had the clock, right?
That's it,
Said
that's
everybody
it.
go back.
you told me short
So,
and sweet. Short
That's
and
right.
sweet.
Yeah. So the presentation is in your Google Drive. Tonight we're just going to talk about technology, school nutrition services. We'll have the public information. Other is in there if you want it. But we'll start off with the technology budget. This is the budget for FY24. Most of the increases in the staff, very little in purchase property, and a little bit in the supplies, books, and utilities. That's where all the software is stored. So we've accounted for the increases and then started moving software to their respective departments. Also, for next fiscal year audit, I think June of '24, that's when we'll be producing software with all the beginning and end terms. That's going to be part of the new accounting audit that they'll need. So we're starting that work now, and we'll probably have it ready for this year, so it is ready for next year. And then the equipment line's down significantly. If you remember, that's how we financed the network switches that were done district-wide. That process is still going on, but will be completed by the end of this year. That was a combination of a loan from one of your trust funds, also E-rate reimbursement, and general fund money. And then the dues, fees, and interest all stay the same. The revenue that we do get on behalf of technology is E-rate. Last year was the big revenue because of those network switches, which they call Category 2. Normally we get Category 1, which is reimbursement for internet. They used to do it for phone lines. And wasn't there something else? I think just phones.
Mostly
right?
phone lines, yeah.
And that's
years
all
ago. Yeah.
gone away now. So it's just internet that they reimburse a portion of. And then, some of the stuff here. So here's the overview of that department. And I'll let Pam speak to some of that. I don't take all your thunder.
So we have 6 members in the department, including me. As you probably know, we've had 2 ESSER-funded technicians. The technician title is actually changing to support specialist. Just a title change, just to more modernize the title. So we're losing those positions at the end of this year. This slide is almost exactly the same as last year for those of you who are returning on the budget or on the school board. But this is my 9th year in the district. So when I look at the amount that we've sort of absorbed with the same staffing, we've doubled our student devices in the 9 years. We've taken on all the building security. So other than the door access control at the new buildings, the 3 new schools, we didn't have any security until we started doing the PSI grants in 2017. So we have a bunch of security cameras. We developed the whole badging system that we use with staff, access control. This building has a little bit of specialized access control. We have the visitor management stations at all the schools, so those are things. And then over the pandemic, we absorbed a lot of new applications, obviously, during the pandemic, and some of which we're continuing to use. We do e-signatures. Our educational apps have really risen, and almost all of them need some kind of data synced to them. So I have a catalog. I don't know the exact number, but it's well over 200, probably close to 250 applications that we use with kids across the district. And those all have data privacy agreements, which is something else that's new, is the data privacy law came about in 2018. So we've really taken the lead in this district in terms of getting data privacy agreements with every vendor who receives student data or that students log into. So we've really done a great job of that. And if you're new to the board and didn't see the Concord Monitor article, it was just last fall, maybe November, about that effort. I'm really proud of what we've done in New Hampshire in that respect, because we really are leading the country in terms of that work that we're doing. And we cover 80% of the students in New Hampshire in this collaborative effort. So that's something I do sort of, we're a larger district, so we kind of take the lead to help out some of the smaller districts. As far as big changes this year, I think everything's pretty similar. Our student device replacement cycles at the middle school and the high school I want to highlight. We're moving from buying all of the Chromebooks for the high school at one time or all of the Chromebooks for the middle school at one time to buying grade 9 and grade 6 every year. So the idea being that when you're a new student in that school, you're going to get a fresh new out-of-the-box device no matter what year you're coming, and you're not going to get somebody else's damaged, shoddy, just kind of ratty machine that's been in use for 2 years already. So we're kind of just changing. It's roughly the same cost, but it's just changing the way that we're going to budget for that. In the future, we may decide to do that at 3rd grade, but I think we're good for now. We have all brand new devices in the elementary, so I think we're okay to hold on that for a while.
Can I ask a question about
Sure.
that? That seems like a lot of devices coming out. Oh, thank you, Barb. That seems like a lot of devices coming out of use. How does the district dispose of those devices? Is it through a recycling program? Or do they just hit a dumpster? Just curious
So,
about what that looks like.
For a Chromebook, by the time they hit the end of their cycle, remember at the high school it was 4 years. By the time they hit the end of the cycle, they're in pretty rough shape. So a lot of them have been damaged. We borrow for parts and that kind of thing. There isn't a lot left. If it's working, we may decide to keep some carts of kind of spares around, use them to replace some damaged devices when a student needs a loaner, that kind of thing. But really the Chromebooks are pretty dead at the end. And they don't have a good value either. The iPads actually hold up pretty well with the cases we have on them and the fact they're not being used by middle schoolers. And we do pretty well with those, so we're actually getting ready right now to sell back a couple hundred iPads that are left over.
Great.
So we'll have a vendor come in and buy those.
Awesome, thank you.
Other questions?
Anyone else?
So more stuff on the infrastructure side. We have a very large, what I always like to call an enterprise network. We're running an environment that's as large as, say, Plymouth State, fewer buildings, but same number of staff and students, and same networking equipment actually. So we have 400 access points and a lot of switches and nearly 100 virtual servers. So if you don't understand that, a physical server is the server actual hardware, and then inside of it are just think of bubbles, virtual pieces of software, and each one's a server. We're really looking to kind of minimize what we need to maintain in our own data center. It's a lot. So we're really talking a lot about what can we move to the cloud. I think the cloud can, the providers can do a better job hosting in some cases than we can. But we do have a significant cloud infrastructure as well with Google and Microsoft both out there, as well as a bunch of other products. Things like firewalls, content filters, server room air conditioners, battery backups. You've heard a lot about both of those things this year, unfortunately. We do have budgeted for next year 1 server replacement, so that's the oldest server needs to be replaced. It's a big beefy server which will hold a bunch of other virtual servers. So that's just kind of an overview of the size of our environment, specifically for those of you who are newer to the board.
Can we just go back to the cost of the iPads,
Sure.
not the iPads, the moving to buying a grade 6 and grade 9, and I certainly had heard from the middle schools that they would love to see that.
Oh, yes,
so.
yeah. They've been asking for years.
Yes, but does it change when we're paying the costs? So are we going to have a set amount each year now or
Yes.
every 2 years as opposed to?
It will be more annualized this year from now on. In the capital plan that I revised and handed out this year, at the end of the second page, you'll see these blue highlights. That was to reflect the new sort of annual amounts. And again, everything on here is an estimate, but just to reflect what we're planning to do in which year.
And that starts in 2024.
So it's actually going to start this year.
Oh, okay.
A little bit. We have some grant funding I think we can use this year to get it started, because the high school wasn't due until next year. I like the model because it's more regular. It will cost us a little bit more, because if you consider, well, at the middle school, each student was keeping their device for 3 years, so, and they're staying in school for 3 years. At the high school, it was 4 years, so I think the cost at the high school is gonna go up because we're gonna end up replacing, I guess it won't go up over time. It'll just stay with them through the life of the high school. And we can decide, we haven't discussed it, whether we can let the students buy the devices and take them with them, or just take them with them, or whatever we want to do at the end. So it just seems like a more equitable way to distribute devices for those students.
So starting next year, it's about $365 a year for devices.
And that's just, middle school and high school. I didn't really work the elementary.
Oh yeah, I just.
They've got a few years, yeah.
Okay.
The downside is the devices won't all be the same model, so our repairs may be a little more challenging, because we might end up with mixed models of devices.
The elementary schools use Chromebooks, is that correct?
Grades 3 through 5.
Right.
And they use iPads
The younger.
up to grade 2.
So we'll still need to be buying iPads for 3 to 5, Chromebooks for 3 to 5.
Yes.
Okay, and is that in
Everything at
the,
the elementary is brand new right now, so we don't have to think about it for a few years. We purchased all of those through, there's been so many grants, this year, through a combination of ESSER and E-rate, the special E-rate funds, ECF funds. So
Okay.
we were able to refresh everything this last year for those grade levels.
so that 365,000 doesn't include what we'll have to spend in a few years, or we'll have to add to that, we'll have to bump that up to get the elementary school, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And the iPads are a little bit more expensive than the Chromebooks, but it depends on whether you're doing a touchscreen device or not. So the elementary Chromebooks are a little more pricey than the elementary and middle school are more pricey than the high school Chromebooks, because they're touchscreens.
Because they're touchscreen.
Also more expensive to repair too.
So they need to, I'm sorry,
Oh, no.
Go ahead, John.
go ahead.
Oh, no, yeah, I think you were I had a different question. So.
Do they need to be touchscreen in the
They've
elementary
asked
school?
for them to be.
Okay,
A lot of the apps they use, like
Are touchscreen.
Lexia, are
yeah.
touch.
okay.
Just remember.
For the 400 wireless access points, can you just describe that a bit? Because when I think, I'm like, oh, one building has a wireless. What does that look like?
When you look up, I don't know if they're they might be hidden in the ceiling in here, but if you walk around, you'll see little, I think it's hidden in the ceiling, little access points that say
Got it.
Aruba stuck to
one?
they look like fire,
Yeah.
fire detector, what are those called?
Sprinklers.
Smoke detectors. So typically about one per classroom.
Got it.
And then in a large space, we may have 2 or 3 of those.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And of course, there's switching closets that handle all of the wiring back to that.
Pam, could you talk a little bit about other in the infrastructure focus, the mounted projectors? Because I know you did some work on that this year.
Yes. Sorry, I'm not looking at the same slide.
I think I went back. I know I wanted you to touch on that.
Hold on just one sec. Other. So yeah, so we manage a telephone system. We are moving sort of the server-based part of that phone system to the cloud this summer. So it's all Microsoft. So basically, we're actually able to, we'll be getting rid of about 7 on-premises servers, and then Teams is all hosted by Microsoft. So that'll be a little bit less to manage for us. So we manage the whole phone system. We have a wall-mounted projector or display in every classroom around the district. Sometimes they're smart boards. At the elementary schools, we replaced all of the projectors in the classrooms with these, but a little bit smaller. This is a 85-inch, and we went with 75-inch in the elementary classrooms. So that's the trend now, is to go from projectors to these touchscreen displays, and we try not to call them TVs, but everybody does. And then as well as the surveillance cameras and the door readers and the visitor management system. We are definitely going to have to address the projectors or the displays at the middle school and the high school coming up pretty soon. I did the high school when I arrived, so 2014, 2015, and the middle school right after that, 2015, 2016, so they're getting tired and those devices need to be addressed. The nice thing is they also have bulbs, and when we replace with these, we no longer have to maintain bulbs or worry about bulbs burning out.
Thank you.
Is that what you were looking
Yeah,
for?
no, I just
Okay.
wanted you to make sure we got through those.
Thank you. I just put up a little list of, this is really the last calendar year, so if you think back, so this is really 2022 into now. The projects that we've completed, the display here in the boardroom. At Concord High School, all of our network closets, it's such a big building, are connected by fiber, and that's got about a 15 to 20 year lifespan. So we had a problem last year where that all started to go bad. We replaced all that this summer. We did all of the Wi-Fi last school year. This year we're doing all of the network switches. They've just started to come in, so it's going to be some time before they're finished, probably into the summer. ClearPass is our onboarding system. So when you connect to the network, there's a fairly complicated server which is processing your username and who you are and what rates you get and if you're a guest, and so it allows us to accommodate personal devices because we still know whose they are, and as well as guest devices. We've ordered all new battery backups UPS systems for all of our network closets. So I'm just waiting for the purchase order to come back to me, and then we'll get those ordered. We are having outages, various phones and network, because the UPS batteries are old and they'll just kind of die in a power blip. So we want to get those upgraded. So that was all covered this year. Our enterprise UPSs at the high school, which cover the servers, all of those batteries have been replaced. Still doing a little maintenance on those. There's a lot of confusion about the wiring, and the electricians are still trying to sort that out. Not on school days anymore. The elementary displays, we did the big gym and cafeteria displays at what I call the new schools, Abbott, Downing, Krista, and Millbrook. So those were replaced by new laser projectors. They were not bright enough. They were put in when the schools were built, but they just weren't bright enough for the spaces. Some didn't have HDMI, so they're modernized. We did those last summer, or last fall. All our student devices are in pretty good shape, except the high school's starting to get aged. We replaced the art and the CAD labs at the high school this year. We serviced the HVACs, looked at fire suppression, and then Informacast was a big software project we did at the high school, which allows us to do some broadcasting to the PA system and the phone system simultaneously. So I could see us maybe doing some more work with that over the summer and trying to get that more refined.
Is that the project to sort of address the spots where you couldn't hear
Yeah.
in the school?
Yeah. And I think Jack's been doubling down on just making sure the PA systems work everywhere, and then we'll sort of look at how we can use the software with everything else this summer, because it will do a desktop notification as well for teachers. So those are the big projects I could think of when I was putting the list together. As you know, we had a 6-month vacancy in the network administrator position, so that was pretty tough going for the first half of this year. So I gave you the capital plan, and that's, please just look at it as an estimate. Just trying to plan out which things we would do in which years. I added some color coding in this third column, where the green is really, we're in pretty good shape with that system. The lighter, it was yellow in the spreadsheet, but it comes off as lighter orange here. Is stuff that's, needs to be addressed pretty soon. And the red is stuff that's in a little bit rougher shape.
Excuse me.
So I think the purpose here is just really to plan out what we might replace when. The big unknown is the fiber across the city needs to be replaced very soon. I think it's a 25-year project or 20-year project. We don't really, nobody from the district has a memory of being involved with that project initially, so we're not quite sure what's involved. But we do share fiber with the city, and they manage a lot of the fiber. It's one of the nice things about being here is we don't have that expense. But when it comes time to restoring the fiber around the city, we will definitely need to be helping to pay for it. So we'll see how that goes.
And is that something E-rate or grants or anything contribute towards?
If the city can work with us on our E-rate schedule, because as you know, there's pretty firm deadlines with E-rate, then yes, we could apply for E-rate for our portion of it. But they'd have to sort of accommodate our E-rate bid process and our calendar schedule for E-rate, because it's very strict in terms of deadlines. So I'm not sure when they're thinking about doing that, but it's coming up in the next few years.
Pam, just one question on some of the stuff that's happening at Rundlet. Is most of that stuff either going to have a short lifespan and/or is it movable to a potential new school if that happens?
Mostly movable. We haven't been buying stuff if it's not movable. The piece that I'm concerned about is the fiber. So the switches are connected by fiber inside the building. And if those were done about the same time as Concord High School, they could begin to fail any day now. They just fail. So we may have to do some of that work. I think we spent about $20,000 at the high school doing everything with the internal fiber this summer. So it's not
a huge.
It's not too bad, but it does feel like a waste if we're gonna raise the building at some point. Okay. All the switches, all the access points, all the cameras can be moved.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Just going back, I guess, to the amount of $600,000, you sort of should hint in your presentation that may not be sufficient. Have you come up with a number that you think is a reasonable, how much the district should be spending on average every year if we chose to budget
That's sort
that
of
way?
the number I've been given to work with, but we always seem to figure it out because of end of year spending or grants or creative approaches to things, and it seems to work. The 600, I think it was 650,000 was developed, or maybe it was 675, was developed for student devices, teacher laptops, and some basic server stuff, but that's about it, So all of the extra, like a big network project, right? That's all above and beyond that. It's just the stuff you would anticipate, basically devices replacing every year. So your answer is no. I don't have like a wish list number. I think because I know that it's.
Oh, I'm not asking for the wish list number, to be clear, just like,
Yeah.
Meeker?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, are the printers and copiers, like the wireless, I assume they're connected to networks, so therefore they fall under technology, but
Yes.
I'm not seeing them on the list.
That's because that's Jack's baby.
Oh.
Everything is copiers. We don't really maintain many printers. We have sort of one in each building for students, and that's it. And we have a couple special payroll printers, but we just don't have a lot of printers. Everything is done with copiers, and that's all part of the copier agreement. I think that's coming up this spring. So we just require teachers to print to copiers and release their jobs there.
So we
But
had,
no, that's not traditionally part of my budget.
Gotcha.
so we had, when I came to the district, we had 174 individual printers. You used to go in and hit the pull down, and it would say like ADS room this. You might remember that. CHS room this. And I'm like, okay, so you hit the print. Well, that ain't the one I wanted. Guess what? That print job's off and go.
I do remember that.
Printer's going like this, like woo. We eliminated all that,
Right.
faded them out.
You could print
And then
something
we
somewhere
had
else, yeah.
55 individual printers. So you could literally go in the main office, see a copier, a printer, a fax machine, and there was one other, an individual printer.
Right, I
And it was
remember.
like, we consolidated all into one. So we went from 55 units down to 32, plus the two big workhorses up that Glenna runs. And we also have what's called Follow You. So if you hit the print job, you can go to any copier in a district, swipe it, and it releases your job. And it tracks everything.
So we do work a lot with the software side of it.
So we've tried to eliminate individual printers wherever we possibly could.
And it sounds like there's a contract that's coming up, like, do we lease all of those
Yeah,
devices?
we lease them, we've got it down to 3 years now, which seems to be palatable. We used to get the little clap when they were going out with the old ones, because they were 5 years, and at the end of 5 years, they're hammered. So we've been able to work our way up to, between prepaying for the lease for the year and then quarterly maintenance, I'd saved us 15 grand just on that. We just re-up and try to stay within 3 years, so the copiers have some value at the end, and staff isn't frustrated with copiers that print half-dull stuff and are a mess.
Gotcha.
But then they also have Glenna that they can send stuff to. So.
And then we moved to e-fax as part of that too. So
Yeah.
that's all integrated with the copiers.
I think we should bring fax machines back.
Oh,
They're retro cool now. Yes, pagers, Blackberries, let's do it.
What about mimeograph machines? Just so we're clear, my first year at Walker, in the auditorium up there was a mimeograph table, and there was like one you could push the button and it did it automatically, and the crank.
I had the crank
Amazing.
one
Yeah,
first year,
yeah.
yeah.
Little blue ink.
Yeah, smelly stuff. You breathe that too much.
Yeah.
Have a great rest of your day. Okay.
So Pam, if you could, just take me through, or take us through the cost of $10,000 each for projectors. I mean, that just seems like,
Those
Wow.
are the big projectors. The $10,000, this room was pretty close to that. This was about 8. The $10,000 projectors are the large spaces, like a gym or a cafeteria. They have to throw the image really far.
does that include installation and wiring
Yes.
and all of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The actual classroom displays that we put in this year were $5,000, which included installation services.
Forgive me, but what is a display? You mean
That,
That, okay.
And the teachers can touch it
Okay.
and be interactive with it as well.
Smartboard style. I know
Yeah.
another old term.
Yeah, yeah.
that's what
It's
I'm
just
used
a
to.
newer, more durable, yeah,
And you don't need the ceiling
Brighter.
projectors with those, right?
right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So there's a number of, you'll see the $10,000 repeated a lot as an estimate. There's a number of spaces that don't have projectors yet that we're getting requests for them. The new commons renovations at the high school, those big spaces. So there's a number of, I put them all in red, I think, where I get requests, but I don't have anything to put there or any money to give them yet, but just to keep my eye on them so we know that if we get something, we can take care of those.
And the new, does that represent this is a new item that could become an
Yes.
issue, or it's a
Yes.
newly installed one?
Yes, that would be new, yeah. Like,
Which-
there's nothing there
There's
now.
nothing there, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So it would be new.
yeah.
Does
There's a
it
number of
exist?
spaces at Runlet, and the Runlet spaces are going to get the projectors that came out of the schools last fall when they did the 3 schools. But those projectors all have issues. They're not, some aren't HDMI, they're not modern, so But that's in the vein of, we don't want to invest too much in Runlet right now.
So without drilling too deep into the high school workings, the commons areas would have a need for a large projector?
Yeah, they would
Because they
like
use that
something.
space how?
They would like, I believe they meet with students sometimes as large groups. The Commons A space is kind of I don't know what they're calling it, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it's kind of a student, kind of activity, hangout space, and so they want to have stuff around the room where they could project some things and enable group work and things like that.
It's kind of an interactive space to keep kids from wandering around during open periods.
Didn't it used to have
Yeah.
lockers in it?
Yeah, and kids don't use
Okay.
them. They just don't use lockers at all anymore. It's
that-
interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to lug my crap.
I gotta catch up to the moving treadmill.
I could see them having like advisories in those spaces
Right.
and things like that, small groups,
Gotcha.
where they could use a nice display like this.
Perfect, thank you.
Anyone have anything else? Ms. Clark, do you have anything else?
Nope, short and simple.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will say for the new board members, last year I handed out a sheet about the value of our Microsoft investment. So I'll email that to you all just so that you see that again, where we're trying to sort of purchase select products that are already included in that agreement that we already have, rather than going out and buying a competing product, which would cost more.
Pam, I'll say, this is a ton of information
Yeah.
that you have a good grasp of, and I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's just unbelievable.
Well, she has her very own, cloud above her, so she can store all that information there. Like Pigpen on Charlie Brown has dirt, hers is like
Right.
the cloud, bubbles of information.
The ones and zeros.
Yeah.
Actually, that's, even though that's a very good joke, it does remind me of a question I did have, which is, you have some physical servers, you have some things on the cloud.
Yeah.
Is there a plan to continue to move away from physical servers, or is there a reason for us to invest in physical servers?
We always need some physical because we need to be able to handle the devices that are here. So it kind of hands out their address. It does all the addressing, lets them know where to go. It handles Active Directory, which is our, everything. It's our central database for everything. I do think that a lot of, I'm not going to mention names because I don't want it to be a cybersecurity risk in the public, but we have some core servers that we host, and I'd like to get those out and hosted with their vendors. I think that that's a good move cybersecurity wise, so we're not trying to host them, but also when you saw the infrastructure go down for a couple days this year, like that's, it would be nice to get those out so that somebody could access them from their cell phone or something. So I think in general, a lot of stuff is moving to the cloud, but we're always going to have this sort of core infrastructure. And typically when we choose to host something locally, we already have the hardware. It's cheaper for us to onboard a product that is hosted internally than one that's in the cloud. In the cloud, you're always paying for fees that are related to the resources that server requires, and sometimes it's hard to predict that. In education, we like things to be predictable and budgetable, and sometimes that's hard to say, we're gonna host it off with Microsoft, but, and, Jack doesn't love this. I don't know what it's gonna cost, until we go through it for a year and see what it's actually gonna cost. So, that can be really difficult.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, as you look at the financial software for the district, we've looked at that. The student management software, we've looked at that. The first one to go on is our transportation. That one is gonna go right into the cloud. That winds up being about 6,000 more a year, which is really a low lift compared to the finance system and the student management system are gonna be significantly more money. You gotta weigh, worth buying a server and managing it for 5 more years, or you pay the 40, 60 grand a year in addition to the licenses that you're already paying.
Right.
So that's the big thing. I think it'll get cheaper as time goes on, but it's when to do that. So.
Yeah.
Good.
Anything else?
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Please email me if you have any questions. I'm always happy to help.
gonna be like the public now, we're gonna have a quick recess and then you're gonna
I'm just leaving.
Yeah.
I'll send you a mimeograph if I have any questions.
Or
That's you, yeah.
I'll mail it, with a stamp.
Just your doctor's office.
Yeah.
Because it's secure. Thank you all.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Pam.
Yeah, you too. Stay safe.
Mr. Dunn, you wanted to discuss food services?
Yep, we'll give you an overview of food service for this upcoming year. So, here is the budget comparisons as it relates to food service. Now, the important thing to know about the food service fund is it has to be self-sufficient. It has the revenues and the expenses have to equal one another. If there is any shortage, there either has to be a fund balance, we can't have more than 3 months worth of operating, or we need to take money from the general fund. So, right now, coming off of COVID, Food Service Director Donna Reynolds put together the budget. I sat with her, and this is what she's proposing based on where she sees things in reimbursements. It's a little high, but it winds up netting out, and they also have right now, a significant fund balance of about $735,000. That was all from COVID because of the meals, and when we go through the meal counts, you're gonna see that. So this is the proposed budget for next year as it relates to expenses, and the revenues match that number, based on reimbursements and sales. Again, if the sales are down, the expenses should be down. So this is the best guess coming off of 2018, 2019 was our last normal year. 2021, if you remember, we got to March and then things stopped. And then we started up slow. So you had 2 fiscal years there. And then last year, all the meals were free. So this is the first year that, and you'll see when we go through these sheets, I compare 18, 19 to current year, because that 18, 19 was the last
It's more reflective of
full
how.
chargeable year.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Okay, and reimbursements have changed a bit since then and other things, so, yeah.
Is the daily sale, the difference in it's not prices going up for kids, it's that we had a month or a month and a half of free lunch at the beginning of the school year?
That and the meals, so the daily sales are what the paid folks pay. The child nutrition aid is, I believe that's the 3 cents we receive from the state per breakfast.
3 cents?
3 cents, 3 cents. Don't
Isn't
count
it
it all
for
in
the
one
milk?
place.
Isn't
I
it
was
for
just
the
gonna
milk?
say it's probably for milk.
Huh?
Isn't it just for the milk?
That just is for breakfast.
Okay.
Based on the chart,
Remember
you'll see when it comes up.
that used to- yeah.
And then you have
Set the
the
price
reimbursement,
between
which I'll show you the reimbursement rates for current year, because we don't get what next year is until later. That's the National School Lunch Program. Then we have the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. That's at the elementary level. And then we have the government commodities. That's where, unfortunately, we have to place an order in the beginning of the year, and then every month you get the stuff.
Oh.
So the warehouse is at Runlet, and that's where we store everything in the freezers. And then it's distributed by the carrier. And then you have the transfer to the general fund for us to cover student debt. For this year, last year we used it to cover their medical expenses, but now, because they have such a significant fund balance right now, student debt is one of those things that is not allowed to be covered by any operating profits. That has to be covered by something other than the fund
What's our student
itself.
debt at right now? Is it big?
40,000. You're
Is
gonna
that right
see
there?
that. Yep, you're gonna see that,
Oh, it's okay.
so. So, meal counts. So if I could, I'll start with the one that is labeled 2018, 2019 versus 2022, 2023, YTD, year-to-date. So this will compare The 2018-2019, you see the full school year. You see that this is gonna be breakfast, and behind that is lunch,
Oh, okay.
okay?
All right.
So, if you look as of February, to this year, and I did a change between those months, August through February in 18-19 compared to 2022, and you see the difference down the bottom. So right now, we're about 10,410 meals behind what we were in 18-19. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
For breakfasts?
No
No.
breakfast?
No,
No?
We're about 300 behind, aren't we?
Well, no, this is month to month, but that's the total
Total over.
for the year. So far, year to
Oh,
date,
okay.
we're
I see what you mean.
10,410
And then,
meals behind.
right now, we're at 10,712, right?
No,
cumulative or
that's-
monthly.
That's the total each month.
Okay.
So cumulatively, from, what was I gonna do? From,
Oh, I get it.
yeah, the total, I'm comparing
Okay.
only the August through February of 22 to August to February of 18-19.
Yep. So whatever the difference is
Yeah.
what winds
The
up.
one with the larger font, right?
Yeah.
That's what the one.
Yeah.
Is it a larger font?
Yeah.
So when you total the difference by month,
Yours looks the same. There's
it's
something.
10,410 meals from August to February, short of 2018's 2019's number,
Okay.
okay? And then I did the same thing for the lunches. And right now, that's 26,000 meals shot.
And do you attribute, I hope you don't mind Pam if I ask a question. Do you attribute that to enrollment, kiddos just not choosing the school lunch where they have the ability to? What do you
Yeah, I think
equate
because
that
we're
to?
back to charging, that's one. And-
Yeah.
And, you know, coming off the free program, and it'll be interesting when you see the numbers in the next one. The year it did go free, once, last year was all free, the meal counts were a lot higher than the first year it was free. I don't think people
People
realize.
didn't
Right,
know.
no, I'm
But
quite
when they
sure.
are, we've sold over 400
I
some
mean,
thousand
admittedly,
meals.
my kiddos, I was like,
Yeah.
go get that free lunch.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you do have a piece of enrollment there too, but
Yeah.
the
That's a
program
good point. I didn't put the two
was
and two
about
together.
20,000 to the good, and then
Yeah.
COVID hit, and now it's like, it's trying to start all over again.
Do you
Yeah.
think, is some of this, well, no, I suppose, people not applying for free and reduced even though they could afford it? How are those numbers, like, how are people signing up for free and reduced versus,
So.
are
as
those
much
numbers
as-
down?
As much as you hate the paper and the expense of printing it, we have a print center, we print applications for everybody and send them home at the end of the year.
Yep.
And then we send them home in the beginning of the year. We also reach out, there's also electronic applications.
But have people, are those signups lower?
Based on it, they're about normal. of
Okay.
What they normally average, about 14 to 1,500 kids. 38% of the, we have ours free and reduced in the district. So we're hovering about the same.
Yeah.
Where the issue is when you get into the paid, and you'll see that in the debt,
Okay, yeah.
even though they try to help and promote people to do it. Do they do it because there's no recourse? Do they just, it doesn't matter anyway.
I'm just not gonna pay, somebody will pay it, yeah.
Right. I don't know, because the option's there. If they were eligible, they get it. And if they're not, we find ways to figure it out. So,
Oh, suffer the little children.
definitely a challenge. Well, K, like I said, under the policy, we feed K to 8. we
Well,
don't
that's what I'm
feed in high
saying,
school.
it's people that don't pay.
First 2
that
weeks
can
we
pay
do, and then
don't.
after that, we shut it off.
Right.
Okay. So that's meal counts comparing a normal to normal, if you want to call it normal.
What is it?
If you pull over the next sheet, this is comparing each year and the number of days that were service days in each of those years. So you can see 18-19, 115,000 meals. Then in 19-20, we were at 92,190 meals, but I think it was March 13th was the final day. And then
Doom, doom.
that Monday was, everybody was home. Well, people were like, oh, it's 2 weeks. So there was no infrastructure to
No,
start
at all.
serving meals.
I know, I remember
Right.
thinking,
You know,
so weird.
you could see some of the schools did some things, because you see it in Broken Ground, you see the Krista McCullough numbers. But there was always this 2 weeks, and
Right.
nothing got built up. So then, when we were looking to come back, and then there was the delay, I think, till October of that year, we didn't come back. So that impacts the program, obviously. We also started serving meals to kids. We were doing them on the bus. And you can see in 2021, all the gray area, that's where we were serving meals because we got approval to send meals, weekend meals. So when we were delivering, we were also delivering enough for families to eat on the weekends
Yeah, I remember
during that period of time. But you could see that was 119,000 meals. So we were pretty much achieving what we were in 1819. For breakfast, this is just breakfast. Then you see the first full, complete free year, and 195,000 breakfasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't understand. We don't think they understood that 2021 was free. Because when you look at these numbers, I mean, I know we started off slow, which we typically do.
Well, no, that,
start
for
off.
that year, we had a lot of remote learning too.
You did,
So
because it
that,
was kind of that.
but we would deliver on those days, always?
No, we stopped
No.
the deliveries for last
So
year.
that might be why some of the numbers were down.
Well, the numbers for 21, 22 are up, but in 2020, 2021, we were delivering meals to start,
That's right, that's right.
and then we ended it.
I don't think we had remote learning last year.
No, but that's what
No.
I'm saying, so more people are at school
Yeah,
eating.
yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then you get into now, and we're at 57,000 meals so far, for breakfasts.
Okay, so we're kind of, based on 2018, 2019, February, we're right there.
I mean, you got 4 months left, you're probably you might make the 90s. I mean, we're averaging 10,000 meals a
Yeah.
month.
All right,
So you might hit 97,000 if we're lucky.
okay.
Not back to pre-pandemic levels. Now, you go to the next page for the lunch, you take a look at each of those, we were at 370,000 meals in 1819. And then 254, 214, 453,000 meals.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah, they were busy bodies. So now we're at 205, again with 4 months left. I don't think we'll break 300, but, we might, I'm sorry, we might, based
Yeah,
on that.
you
Yeah,
might.
30-some thousand. But I don't know if we'll hit the 370, we might hit the 330,
390, 100, yeah, you'll break
we might
300,
hit 330.
yeah.
So hopefully that'll be good, but again, it has a pretty good fund balance right now. But I thought it was important to show you the numbers, where it's trending. I know you had asked about if you provided lunch free. I think you'd be looking at about 1.2 million to do that.
Yeah.
And then the other challenge you'd have is, well, if I don't have to pay anything for the meals, what's the point of the application? Even though we would still be enrolled in the National School Lunch Program and want to get those reimbursements, which
Yeah.
you're going to see in a minute, what's the incentive? So that could be a challenge.
Lower taxes.
I don't know how you do that if you raise 1.2 million. I don't know how the taxes are gonna get out, but. So student debt. So this is the debt by school and by, status. So this is as of March 9th. So you can see, and people might, we get emails, well, why want my kid if they're free, why is there a charge? Well, they could be getting a snack, they could be getting the milk, and they don't get the full meal, and that's what happens. Then you see reduced, but then all the money, there it is in the paid. So you're at almost $41,000 in debt right now. And we send out notices between emails and calls, and we'll ramp it up as it comes to the end of the year, but, it's hard. I think we'll make it back below the 35,000 that we'll need for next year, but, this is typical.
Jack, back on that last slide,
Right there?
is that $30 at BGS?
Yep.
How is it so much lower than the others?
I don't know. I will ask.
Meaning, but does that mean that's how many students are receiving?
No, that's dollars.
Dollars.
That's the total debt.
That they
owed
got
for
other
that,
things that
for
were
free
in
status.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
okay.
But their debt is lower than the other
Yep,
elementary schools
considerably
too.
lower.
So maybe they're doing a better job getting people signed up for free and reduced lunch.
But that $30 would represent, snacks.
No, I mean, but there are other numbers too.
Oh, right,
So-
right, yeah.
I will find out.
Okay.
All right. So for lunch prices, this is what we charge as it relates to, depending on the status and the level. So obviously free, they don't pay anything. Reduced also now does not pay anything for breakfast.
Right, I wondered about that.
Yeah. And then, for elementary, it's $1.50 for breakfast, middle $1.75, and high school $2. And then for St. John's and Concord Christian that we serve, St. John's is in the National School Lunch Program. They don't have breakfast though.
Right.
But they follow they're on our guidelines. Concord Christian was, when they were, last year, they came on, and they were really ramped up with meals. But this year, they chose not to be involved in the program, and now they're just under a contract. So you see their prices on the lunch level down the bottom. They pay $4 for their K through 5 kids and $4.50 for middle and high, because we're kind of like a catering. We can
DoorDash.
do whatever we want. Yeah, we can do whatever we want because we're not restricted
Yeah.
by the National School Lunch Program. So, and then you get into the lunch for the elementary. 40 cents for reduced, $2.50 for elementary, $2.75 for middle, and $3.50 for high. And St. John's, we charge 40 cents for reduced and $2.75 for K through 8.
Do we still offer breakfast and lunch in the summer?
So that's done by the CAP.
Okay.
The capital area, I can't remember.
So
the
that's
name.
not through us?
We do not do it, no. No, they use our kitchens, but
Right,
not through
right,
us.
okay.
Yeah. I think at 2 of our schools.
Does the Concord Christian cover its costs?
Yeah, they're all required. If any student debt is outstanding or any operating expense, we bill them for the difference.
Do we make a
So,
profit?
no.
I don't think we're allowed.
We charge, like at St. John's, we charge a $1,600 fee. The fee for Concord Christian's higher than that. I can't remember what it is offhand, but we charge them a fee to manage the program.
Okay.
It's not a moneymaker.
No.
It's really feeding kids. And St. John's been here since
Yeah, since forever.
a long time.
Yeah.
Concord Christian's very new in the last 2 years, but
That's right.
now that they're out of the program and into this, we'll have to see what they'll do for next year. And we're talking with both now, as far as whether they want to continue or do something else. Okay?
Hey, Jack.
Yeah.
The pricing for breakfasts and lunches, just because I'm new.
Yeah.
Is this historically what the price has been? Does it change very often? Is it set by federal rule?
Well, a couple of things. One, we probably haven't gone up a quarter on the lunches in probably 5 years. Anytime you go up, participation goes down. Even though when you look at that, I don't even know if you can get coffee for $2.50 or $2.75. I mean, you get a lot for that price. We're also pretty much in line with what other school districts charge. So, as a matter of fact, our high school is probably higher than most school districts. But, yeah.
Thanks.
Does that help?
Yeah.
But now and then you were saying, so we have to do a PLE tool, it's called. Came out when Obama administration and Michelle Obama had come out with her move, and they changed this whole program up in 2011. It's called the program it's an equity tool, they call it. And we have to put a bunch of numbers in, and then what happens is it tells us whether we're charging too much or too little, and then you have to come up with plans to rectify it. So, if we were to up these too high, we would probably be saying, well, you have too much of this subsidizing this. It's a whole thing that Donna has to do in June, so we go to set our prices.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question about just like what is being served for lunches, and I know that there's specific federal guidelines that we have to follow as far as like nutrition, like how it fits into a balanced diet and things like that. But is like what we're feeding kiddos like pretty universal? Like this is what public schools are feeding all kids across the state? Or is there a plan that we've chosen? Like, what does that look like when we're making decisions about what kids are eating? And does that ultimately affect the cost of what kids are getting?
I'll have Donna Reynolds address it.
Okay.
Just from what
Yeah.
my kids eat, because they're a traditional lunch program,
Yeah, okay.
breakfast program.
Just curious, because I know that it always like comes up in like parent circles
Sure.
about what the options are for kiddos, and some parents wish that it was more nutritionally dense. Others are just like, they would throw it away anyway, like, it's sort of like, how do you find that balance of like, fresh produce and all those other things? So I'm curious about how those details are decided.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
One other
Donna
thing,
address it.
Sarah, that Donna's been doing is working with the high school kids and trying foods around the different cultures of the students at the high school.
Nice.
And they've been doing some work. They have a student intern from Keene State that's participating with her and working with her and helping to develop meals. They met with youngsters, created meals that were, different foods that we wouldn't normally serve, and still within the cost range. Donna talked to me last week about it. So we're trying to do some different things to meet cultural appetites of some of our kids.
I'd love to learn more about that too. I think
well,
that's really
We'll
cool.
I talked to Donna, and I probably haven't shared this with Jack, but I thought it would be really neat to have her come and share a little bit of the things that she's doing with the food service program.
Yeah, I'd love that. I think
Yeah.
the community would like that too. Thank you.
How does the CRTC culinary program work with our nutritional
It's
services?
interesting that the last meal that they did to change up the menu for the kids, they did it with the culinary art kids. They did it with Donna and her team to serve those different kinds of food. So she was so excited, everybody was, and I think we'll see more of that.
Great. Thank you.
But the foods, I've been looking at foods for a long time.
Yeah.
And they're pretty standard, and one of the problems is you got to serve food that they'll
eat. I
and
know.
you don't want to see them, going over to the bucket and throwing it away. So they try really hard to.
Yeah, how do you find that balance,
Yeah. And the other thing, though, that you'll always see, both in the classrooms, a lot of classrooms, I think when we were visiting, we saw some, there's fresh fruit in the classrooms.
Yes.
And she always has bowls of fresh fruit, apples, that kind of thing, out so the kids can just pick that up and take it with them, so
Nice.
at no charge. So she's doing some of that. We'll have her here to a meeting. I think you'll enjoy it.
Nice, thank you.
And we are part of the fresh fruit and vegetable program, which I'll
Yeah.
mention in a minute. And there were years where, there was a year we were not eligible. At least one of the schools, maybe two, and the board funded it because it felt it should be at every elementary school.
Yeah.
Some of you may remember that. So, this is just a cut out of the sheet that we get. It's a little confusing, but I just wanted to highlight before you see the reimbursement rates. This is the sheet that they provide us, so you can see that school lunch reimbursement is the 77 cents plus the 8 cents for a total of 85 cents. You'll see all the math on the next sheet. And then the reduced, what we get, and again, this is what we get for each meal that's sold in addition to the amount that the person taking the meal would pay. So if they pay the 40 cents for the lunch, it's 40 cents plus the $4.01 that we get. And then for every free lunch, it's $4.41. And a paid is 85 cents. And the same thing with the breakfast, which I'll go to that so you can see that math. So again, these are the amounts we get for every meal we sell depending on the status. So in addition, so an example, the high school, we get $3.50 for a paid meal, we get an additional 53 cents.
And that's federal funding?
Yep,
Okay.
federal, yeah. When it gets to the, 85 cents, because I went right to the breakfast, I meant
Yeah.
on the lunch at $3.50.
Yeah.
And then if it was, what's $2.50 the breakfast, it'd be 53 cents. Yeah, anything the state contributes is, for the breakfast is the 3 cents. That's the state share of the school reimbursement. Has been that way ever since.
It was a real fight to get that 3 cents.
Right?
I believe
Money's money.
Yeah, unbelievable.
it. So, okay. And then as far as the programs, these are all the programs that we participate in. So you have the school breakfast program, the National School Lunch Program, the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, and the After-School Snack Program, which we run through 21C. I think that is new. We finally jumped in on that last year.
And I'm seeing it says Runlet only, so the
Yeah.
21C program that runs at the other schools do not have snack assistance?
No.
Okay.
How is that covered? Because they offer snack.
Yeah, it's covered through the 21C grant.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, then I tried to, hopefully those little click links work to the more fact sheets and all on the FNS website for the government.
Can you go back one slide?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For the graphic that displays how much the federal government reimburses.
So one more.
So one more.
Black and white.
Yes.
Oh, that? Yep.
And I apologize if you did mention this. So it says like how the federal regulations requires the maximum price to be 40 cents. So could you just explain that? Because it says like then 77 cents on there. Can you explain how those numbers are like reconciled, if you know?
Well, I know from my cheat sheet
Okay.
that because we're in the program, we get 77 cents plus the 7-cent certification reimbursement, which is actually 8 cents, to bring a total of 85 cents for the paid. So we're eligible for both the Section 4 and the 7-cent certification, which I'm guessing went to 8 cents at some point. And that gives the total of 85 cents for paid.
Oh, okay. I think it was
It's a very confusing sheet.
misunderstanding. Got it.
And then this one is the 77 plus Section 11, 316, plus the 8 cents gives a 401. And then for free, it's 77 plus the $3.56, which if you take 40 cents, that's the reduced.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That gets you to, yeah, they're picking up that portion, and then the 8, okay? And then for these two here, it is the 50 and 53 give you 53 cents. These two plus the state share give you 267, and the free is 270. That's the federal state for the total of the 270. Okay?
Thank you.
And then, as I mentioned, programs. Oh, and I think that's all I have.
Okay.
The work session schedule. As you see, we had tonight is that open session. We have the high school enrollments. I don't know if there's anything you want to comment on that. Consider pending storms and prep work. That's the first thing I thought of. And then the two public hearings at 6 o'clock on the 20th and 22nd. Then you have an open session following those public hearings, and then hopefully you will finalize a preliminary FY24 budget with 5 or more votes on the 29th. And everything is posted on the website. And there are all your elected officials.
He does love this.
Reach out and touch someone.
Thank you. Does
You're welcome.
anyone
Thanks very
have
much.
any other questions? Superintendent, do you have anything else for us? this
No, I
evening?
don't. No.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, you guys.
You guys.
Well, it's supposed to be a half